So we're continuing on with our practice of non-exempt employees. Step 3, to get her hourly rate. How many hours are in a full-time work year? 2,080, which was what times what? 52 times 40. But we can't always jump there, and we're going to see an example in a second here where we can't just go on autopilot on that number. Lots of times we can, but lots of times we can't. I am going to round up, right? 0.115. Round up to...
Can I just take that?
Okay, so remember, so the way the slides are written, I said that I do it a little bit differently rather than go through a weekly gross, because why would you do that? She's not paid weekly.
Right. Okay.
This is an important number because we're going to use it again when we cut our final check or come to our final number, aren't we? So I'm not really sure why we go through that whole intermediary of weekly.
All right.
Did I convince you?
Yeah.
Okay. What do we do once we get the 1212? 1.5.
But 0.5 technically, right?
So to get her overtime rate, right?
Or, wait, just kidding.
Yeah, little prankster.
So what I did, I said 12.12 times 0.5, and I got 6.06, and then did 12.12 plus 6.
So you can do that, and there's going to be examples where we use that premium, which you just calculated, rather than the rate, which I'm showing you to calculate. But it's double work in this example. And what I really want to do is get us all on the same page where we all use the same 5 steps, because honestly, if you can do them, then, you just get it right 100% of the time. So what am I labeling this 1818? Overtime rate. Right? Then the check itself is going to be $1,050 plus what? Yeah, $18.18 times 4 hours of overtime. That's known as her gross pay. And now if I was running her paycheck, what would I do? I've got to take all the withholdings out and all the deductions, and then I cut her a net check. Good. This whole chapter is just on that top number. All right. Now, let's see. I think, is everybody done with this guy? Let me see if I can find the homework. Is this where I left us off? No. This one? All right. All right, why don't you guys just walk me through the numbers. Step 1, what times what? Good, and so therefore her annual salary, Shaw, is what? One more time, 20. Great. Okay, Cammie, what do I do next? Yep, and how much does she make then? I've got your piece of paper. Okay, I can do this. 23,832 divided by 24. Oops. 832 divided by 24. 993. And what do we label that again? That's called her what? Regular gross check. Okay, Hannah, what do I do next?
Then you divide the annual salary by the number of hours in the
Yep. So what is her hourly wage?
11.64.
46? Transposing numbers in accounting sucks. 0.46 times 1.5. 17.19 an hour OT.
Yeah.
Yeah. So her regular check, or her check is $9.93 plus 9 1/4 hours times 17.19, right? $1,152 and a penny. Okay, very good. Next concept. Piece rate. Piece rate is a system, and again, just to flash back to what we were talking about before, we can pay people any way we want. I can pay you no base pay and solely commission, as long as you what? Make, sorry? Minimum wage, and you agree to it, and I'm, transparent about my compensation scheme. Okay, this is a scheme very prevalent for people that assemble things, people that package things, people that do quality assurance and quality control. You get paid on your production, right? And it's called piece rate. And there's two basic methods of doing it. They will not yield the same result. They're just different methods. So don't be agitated because they're not meant to yield the same result, but you can test for reasonableness. They should be around the same number. Okay? One puts a focus on the units themselves, and one puts a focus on when you produced them. In other words, you get paid a different rate for the units that you produce or inspect or assemble in the first 40 hours than you do for the ones in overtime. So I think this is easier to show by using numbers again than just walking through the verbiage. But I do want to point out something that Shaili was bringing up earlier, which is we're going to be using this idea of overtime premium here, which is different from an overtime rate. It's the tack on of the 0.5. And I'll make a case here why we're using it here, but we didn't use it there. Okay, but just put in the back of your mind right now, there's a difference between an overtime premium and an overtime rate. An overtime rate is the full 1.5. The premium's just the 0.5 tack on. Okay.
So if the two methods don't result in the same, then why are the two methods?
It just, and I'll show you that, but it sort of depends upon what the management wants to focus on.
Okay.
Overtime, 47 1/4 hour week. Okay, let's just go over here to do this, I think. Because I want to walk you through. Okay, so we're down here now. So let's say I'm inspecting cases of raw honey. Right? I want to make sure they're pasteurized, that they're correctly bottled, that the labels are on straight, all that good stuff. And for every case, I get 12 cents. For every bottle, let's say. I guess case would be too much. And in one work week, I work 47.25 hours. And I inspect 4,812 bottles of raw honey.
Is this method A or method B?
I'm going to show both of them.
Both of them?
Yeah,
Okay.
with this data set.
Okay.
And of the 4,812 bottles of honey, 600 of them were inspected in overtime. So it's not plus 600, it's the 600s in the 4812. The first method focuses just on on the piece rate itself. The second method focuses on when did you produce them. So method A. Step 1 is to figure out what is her regular gross for all 4,812 bottles of honey. How are you going to do that?
The hourly rate.
No, you don't have an hourly, you have a piece rate. How are you going to get her just her gross? Yeah, how many units does she inspect and how much does she get paid a unit? So go ahead, write that formula out and come to that number. And again, I really want you to be like physically writing it out.
I guess I don't understand.
So she inspected how many bottles of honey?
4,800.
And how much does she get paid for each bottle she inspects? That's it. That easy.
So why did the 47.20?
Well, we've got to get her overtime in there because she's worked overtime.
Okay.
But first we just need to figure out like, how much did she make for all 4,812 bottles of honey? And then once you get that number, then you can figure out how much we're paying her an hour. So those are the first two calculations. How much did she get for inspecting all of them? And then how does that translate to an hourly rate?
Do you divide it by 40?
Well, I want you to think about that. How many hours did it take her to do it?
47.
47.25. That's method B. Now, there's nothing different with the 600
Okay.
method A.
Okay.
Yep. How are you going to label that $12.22 an hour? That's her what? Regular rate. For every hour she worked, she made $12.22, correct? So why can't I just leave it at that? She needs to get overtime for the last 7.25 hours. Am I going to pay her another 1.5 times on top of the $577.44? I'm already paying her $12.22 an hour for all the hours. So what do I just need to tack on? 0.5 overtime premium. Calculate the overtime premium and then just tack that on for the last 7.25 hours.
How did we know it was 7.25 hours?
Because she worked 47.25 hours.
Oh,
That's
so
her
it's
from
just
her
over
time
the
card.
40-hour work week. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then would you times that by the 7.25?
I think you would. Again, make sure to label this. So 621.74, right?
That's your gross.
That's her gross pay. The key here, and everybody will sit and smile and nod, I get it, Lisa, and then half of you will show up on the test, and you'll make one really critical error. And that's right here. You have to divide by all the hours that she worked to get her that gross. If you divide by 40, you are not going to get the right answer. It did not take her 40 hours. It took her 47.25. Okay? Second method is super easy. All it says is that I get paid my 12 cents for the units I made in the first 40 hours. And I make 12 cents times 1.5 for all the units I made after 40 hours. How many units did I make in the first 40 hours or inspect? Not 4812. 4212, yes. Right? I had 4,812 units in total. If I did 600 of them in overtime, you subtract the 600, how many did I do in the first 40 hours, right? So method B is literally just one algebraic statement with, it's a compound algebraic statement. See how handy algebra is even when you didn't think it ever would be? So I think we're paying her 18 cents.
And on that 1.5 is just the overtime.
That's always, yep, that's just the 1.5 is the mandatory overtime, right? Is your answer reasonable compared to the output from the first method?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's within a couple bucks, right?
So then it's just based on whether you want to pay your employee.
Finish your question, sorry.
I'm just like, I don't understand why you would choose, what's the incentive for an employer to choose, you know?
One over the other?
Yeah.
Can somebody answer Katie's question?
Well, I feel like it depends on how many units are produced.
What is method B incenting an employee to do, for better or worse?
So we're,
To work harder in overtime.
yeah,
Is that the message you want to send?
I guess, I don't know.
I mean, is it? Do you want fluctuating production out of your employees?
Right, okay.
I don't.
You answered my question.
Yeah, I don't want them flying through inspection just because they're making 18 cents more rather than 12 cents, because then it's probably rates are going to go up, right? So that's not, I mean, I don't see any purpose of incenting using method B.
I guess I just, yeah, it's funny that there's two.
Method A gives, that nice even result, which is what I would choose if I was incenting using piece rate. Okay, let's try. You just have to know I'm going to ask every single class period, how late do we go? 1:50? Yeah. A, am I in the right classroom? B, how long are we here for? Okay, let's try an example where maybe I can actually even break down and get another piece of paper. Where we have a work week that's less than 40 hours. So lots of times, particularly in big cities where traffic is abysmal, time is more of a premium than money in some instances. So I let everybody that works at my juicing factory go, get off at 3 o'clock on Fridays, right, to beat Friday traffic, because my son works in the Bay Area, and if he leaves work at 5 o'clock on Friday, he's not home till 8. Okay, so goes your whole Friday night with your kiddo and your wife, right? So he doesn't work an 8 to 5 job, but my point being is that it's, this really is, it's an incentive. It helps recruit in cities. So I quote you a $2,180 monthly salary for a 38-hour work week.
Is it still piece rate?
No.
Okay.
Does it look like piece rate?
No.
Okay. And actually, just to answer your question a little bit more fluidly, you're going to get to the point where you just have to discern what the pay scheme is and apply it. And I pay bi-weekly. Is that the same as semi-monthly? How many times a year is that again? 26. Every other week. Bi-weekly. And in one pay period, and how many hours then is in a bi-weekly pay period? 80 in a quote-unquote normal, right? Huh?
Well, in this one,
Right. So in one bi-weekly pay period, Sherman works at the juicing factory 89 hours. So what's the scene here then? How many hours of overtime for my company has he worked?
13.
He has. He's worked 13 hours of quote-unquote overtime. Because I'm paying him his salary for 38 hours a week. But the overtime's at 2 different rates. The hours between 38 and 40, I pay him just his regular hourly rate. Once he hits 40, I have to pay him by law 1.5.
So then it would just be a normal 40 hours technically.
So he's got kind of 2 layers of overtime here, doesn't he? How many hours do I have to pay him his regular hourly rate? The difference between 38 and 40 for both weeks, right? So 4. Yep, so 38 hours a week times 2 weeks. Yeah? Yeah, just keep asking questions. There's a lot of numbers here. And then 9 hours, I've got to pay him that 1.5, right? So I pay him his salary for 38 hours a week. Then I got to give him 4 hours of regular hourly pay. And I got to give him another 9 hours of overtime at 1.5. Everything's going to look the same except for what calculation? You're going to annualize it. You're going to find his regular gross. You're going to get his hourly rate.
And then 5 steps.
It's going to be 6.
One more time.
5, but there's
It's essentially going to be 6
5
steps. 'cause
steps
there's
or 6.
Nope, there's just something very different about step 3. Just go ahead. When but how do I find his hourly rate? What divided by what? Back up to the annual. By how many hours and what? A work year. How many hours in a work year? So I'll meet you all at the culmination of step 3. Don't say it. But this is what we've been talking about. You can't just defer every single time to 2080 because he's not paid salary to work 2,080 hours. Oh. The plot thickens. Is this yours, Cammy?
I could see the cartoon. And my
Just give me everything in case. Okay, so 2180 times 12, annualizing the salary. Oh, 26,160. What do I divide by to get her regular gross? What do I divide by to get her hourly wage? Two, whoops, 26160 divided by 1,976 hours. What am I going to label that again? Her regular hourly rate, right? No, 52.
So you do 38.
38 hours a week, 52 weeks in the year.
Yeah, so 38 times.
Before we just took 40 times 52. Now we're taking 38 times 52, right?
Okay, so I was way overthinking it. That's what I was trying to, that's what I said.
How do I get her overtime rate?
You do 4 hours in regular pay.
She's going to get 4 hours at this 13.24, right? But I've also got to figure out that 1.5 for everything over 40. So when you go to figure a paycheck, there's 3 parts to the calculation, isn't there? Regular gross paycheck, so many hours at 13.24, and so many hours at 1986. Does that make sense? that's the gross. Austin, do you have a question?
Oh no, my answer was just off by.
Calculator sometimes and leave like a bunch of pennies in for an hourly rate, you're just going to get a rounding error. Did anybody else, did I screw up somewhere?
No, I just accidentally divided the top, the 2180 divided by 2, because I was doing bi-weekly, but it's actually the regular gross rate.
Right, yep. That's why we always go back up to the annual number. Do you want to try one more of these?
I'm sorry, I'm probably the
Please.
one that's not getting this, but I still don't understand the breakdown of the 13 hours overtime and why she was
Sure.
regular.
So she worked a total right here, Lise, right? And how much did I agree to pay her salary for?
The 2180 a month.
I'm sorry, for hours. For how many hours a week?
38.
And so how many hours is that for 2 weeks?
60, 72?
76,
76.
right? So that's this.
Okay.
So in total, I paid her salary for 76 hours. She worked 89. She worked 13 hours of overtime, right? In that first week, I'm paying her for the 2 hours here between 38 and 40 at her regular rate. And then in the second week, same thing. So that's the 4 hours of regular. And then everything else in the 13, in other words, 13 minus 4 is 9.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Okay, let's try one. This time, for whatever reason, I'm quoting a semi-monthly salary. Weird. I can do whatever I want. I'm the teacher, I'm the boss. And in my company, you get off every day at 4. I pay you for a 7-hour workday.
Can you slide that sheet up?
Oh, sure. Is that helpful? Okay, my company, I quote my salary on a semi-monthly basis, $1,100. And I pay you for a 35-hour work week. And in 1 week you worked 43 and a half hours.
Out of 2 weeks.
Nope, I cut checks weekly.
Weekly? Okay.
So I want to know, first do this little guy up here where you figure out how many hours of overtime you think you're paying her in total, and then break that down between the regular rate and the 1.5 rate. Go ahead.
After 1 week, say 1 week,
I'm cutting the checks weekly.
the next week.
1 week Yvonne worked 43 and a half hours. Oh, yeah, that's her name, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not trickily introducing a new concept. It's just a person's name. Some water.
Right?
You can't divide it by 12 yet, that's not. You divide it by 24.
Go ahead.
So for the semi-monthly salary, you have to times it by 2 and then divide by 12.
Okay, nope. So how do you annualize a semi-monthly salary?
By 12.
Really? 24. Yeah, you can multiply it by 24. So you're paid 24 times in a year. To annualize it, you always have to multiply by how many times it's quoted in a year. So if somebody quoted you a semi-monthly salary, are you going to multiply it by 12? And they're not even paying you minimum wage then, are they? Right, that's my annual. How often is she paid? So what do I divide by? 52 weeks in a year. Trying to find a regular gross paycheck, right?
But it's only $35.
Well, but we're not there yet. That's step 3. I gotcha. This is teaching you critical thinking skills. Yay! Employers love critical thinking skills. Now what am I dividing by to get her hourly wage? 52 weeks times 35 hours. That's how many hours in a year I'm paying her for, right? See how if you always go back up to this annual number, you can't go wrong? Well, I guess you can, but... So how many hours of overtime did she technically work in my company? Yeah, 43.5 hours, and she worked 35, right? So I think she worked 8.5 hours, quote unquote, of overtime, right? How many of them are paid at her regular rate? Yeah, the difference between 35 and 40 is just paid at her regular hourly rate, right? Therefore, how many are paid at the time and a half? numbers together. Is that what you guys got?
You know this, you know.
Just keep me grounded, Katie. Okay.
So for to figure out the overtime work, if it was every other week, would you do 35 times 2? Like
Yes.
Or what about if it was just they got paid once a month?
I wouldn't do that because that gets really, because how many hours are really in a monthly paycheck? They'll either be bi-weekly or weekly.
Okay.
So for Thursday, you should do your homework for chapter 2, all of it. And
Talking about the review questions.
the review, the discussion, and the practical problems.
Okay,
You'll have
is that all
numbers.
listed in the-
It's all listed in your syllabus, yep, in Moodle, yep. And we'll go over your homework, and then we'll start on chapter 3. I'm anticipating, okay, just for your own purposes, next Thursday, I'm actually gone. I've got a medical thing I got to attend to. And I'm anticipating, what did I just do with that? I'm anticipating your first exam over chapters 1, 2, and 3 to be on the 18th of February, which is, I believe, 2 weeks from today. No, 3 weeks from today.
February 28th.
18th. Feb 18th, 3 weeks from today. Okay?
Chapter 1 to
1 through 3, yep. And good work. Remind me to go through these last 4 slides on Thursday as well. Okay? Please?